Hi everyone, we are here to learn today about putting two different data sets on the same set of axes in Logger Pro. So you can see what I've done already is I've just cut and pasted some data straight into Logger Pro right here. And right after I do that, what I'm going to want to do is tell Logger Pro what this data set is. So if you look up at the top, your default is just data set, and there's an X and a Y. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on that data set, and I am going to say that this data set was dropping rocks into sand. And rocks does not have an E in it, so there we go. And then I can comment, and I'm going to say that this was trial 1. And of course, I could put more information about trial 1 in there so I could look back on it later. But for now, that's going to be fine. So I'm going to say OK. And we can see that it renamed that data set to dropping rocks. And now I can rename this X and Y over here to what these variables actually are. So if I come up and I double click on the X, this is going to be the height that I dropped a rock from. I'm going to say height dropped. And I'm going to give that a short name of H and a unit of meters. And you can see that there are drop-down menus right here. So if I wanted a superscript or a subscript on any of those things, I could put that in. When I say done, it's going to change my X axes so that it's labeled correctly. And I can do the exact same thing for Y. And I'm going to say that this was depth, that the rock went into the sand. I'm going to give that a D as a short name, and I'm going to put that in a unit of centimeters. I'm going to say done. So now what I have is, if you look down here on my X and my Y axes, they're properly labeled, and I have information that I need about dropping rocks into sand. But let's say I wanted to do multiple trials, or I wanted to compare this experimental data to some theoretical data. I would need a second data set to show on this graph. And I'm going to get a second data set by going up to the top where it says data, and clicking on that drop-down menu. And you can see that when I do that, I'm going to get a new data set as one of my options. So if I click new data set, I'm going to get another dropping rocks on sand data set. And instead of saying 2, I'm going to, or maybe I'll leave it as 2 right here, or maybe this was my theoretical. This is what I expected to have happen, and my spelling is getting pretty bad right now. And so I can put theory right here. There we go. Say OK. And now I have this second data set, and I can look at the second data set by just scrolling over. I can also make this bigger if I wanted to see. If I wanted to see both of those data sets at once, just like that. And I could put more data in for this data set. So now let's say I get 1 and 3, 2 and 5, 3 and 10, 4 and 17. And again, I'm just making some offset here so we can see it. And we'll put that as 26, just like that. Now you can see I still only have one set of data on my x-axis, and that's going to be the default set, or the first set that I got. So what I'm going to want to do is double click on any white space on the graph. And when I do that, it's going to bring up the axes options. And you can see that I actually have 2 dropping rocks data set. One of them has it on the y-axis. This is the y-axis column right here. One of it is showing the depth on the y-axis. If I want to show both of them, I just need to scroll down and click that I'd also like to see what's going on this second. This is my theory that I made right here. So you can see that all of the data sets that I make are going to end up right in here. Now, if you collect data with a Vernier probe, every time you put something into the filing cabinet or you make another run, what it's actually doing is making another data set. So when you import data into Logger Pro, you're going to see all your data sets right here under the y-axis, and you can choose what you want to see on that y-axis. So one of the things I'm going to always click when I am in this part of Logger Pro is I'm going to say auto scale from 0 right here. And remember we talked about the fact that it's really important sometimes to see the origin on our graphs. And so this is going to guarantee that I can see the origin. And then down below this, I have some x-axis options. You can see that my x-axis is going to be height dropped, and I can choose that to different things, but I'd like to leave it as height dropped because that is my independent variable. My auto scale from 0 can also be clicked right here, and that's going to make it so the origin is something that's absolutely on my graph. And now if I click OK, you can see that I have two sets of data on these axes. I have a red square that is the theoretical data that I made, and I have an empty red circle that is that first set of data that I made. And if I want to change what those are, I can just double click on those points and it's going to go over, and I can go to options and I can choose what I want these to be. I can choose the color that I want them to be. I'm going to go ahead and make it a different color. I'm going to make that dark blue so it's clear that it's something different, and I get that right there. Now I have two sets of data on the same axes, and I can still do all the same things that I did with data when I just had one set. When I go to analyze and curve fit, because I want to curve fit one of these, what I'm going to need to do is just choose what set of data I want to curve fit. And if I say OK, and I choose a quadratic fit for that, and I do tri-fit, you're going to see that it's just going to curve fit the thing that I asked it to curve fit. I did want to talk a little bit about what happens when you curve fit something. So sometimes you have a lot of different stuff in this box that maybe you don't want. And I wanted everyone to know that if you double click on this box, like this, you get to choose what it is you want that to look like. So I can choose how many decimal places I want this to go out. I can choose to show the error. If I unclick this, it's actually not going to show the box on the graph, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that clicked. But this is nice for those times when you know that you are not accurate out to the thousandths place. Maybe you're only accurate to the hundredths or even the tenths. You can change what that box looks like. I also want everyone to see that when we're looking at these coefficients right here, this reports out scientific notation the same way your calculator would. So when this says 2e to the negative 15th, what this is really telling me is 2 times 10 to the negative 15th. Or there are a lot of zeros before this 2. This is essentially the same as saying 0. So be careful about recording things that might not really be what you mean. If I see something like this in Logger Pro, I need to think to myself, that is essentially 0. So that's about it for this screencast. If you have any questions, see your teacher and have fun with Logger Pro.